Why have you shied away from close relationships with women?
I'm quite happy to have a few close relationships tonight, if anybody's not spoken for.
But why in the past...
What are you doing after the Joe ladies? A few close relationships. I'm all for it.
I'm sure the offer will be taken up, but why in the past...
Good.
Why in the past have you avoided...
I'm in trouble again.
Why in the past have you avoided close relationships?
Because I've never been in the same town more than about 48 hours at any one time. It's just a lifestyle I've got. It's not my fault.
But if you met somebody that you felt that you wanted to be close to, that lifestyle...
I fell in love every day of my life. Oh, every day of my life I fall in love. 2, 3, 4 times a day. I could get married immediately. Except the lights change and you have to drive off because they're going the other way, or the train pulled out the station and you're going, I want to marry you. But they're on the platform. No, my passions are very near the surface. But I get well in love very quickly.
But therefore, from the way you talk, have relationships and sex been casual? Is that a casual matter for you?
He mentioned the S word.
Well, we had to get round to it eventually.
Did you?
Well...
Oh, you're talking to the wrong guy here. Oh, Mr. No Grass here.
Is it just casual?
What?
Sexual relationships.
What relationships? No. Oh, I've read about them. Yeah, I've read, not in your papers, but I've read about them in the smaller papers. And, yeah, I see what you mean now. Yeah. No, well... Obviously, if a lady has been upset and she has said to me, only a relationship, like as what you mentioned, I can't use that word, if a relationship will make me less happy, I'll say, feel free to use me, I say. Feel free to use me. I will sacrifice myself to you any time of that. And then they say, thank you very much, and then they go, no, that's not my fault. It's not down to me. Ladies.
But it's
Here is a perfectly honest man.
All right, Chase, what do you got?
There is an undercurrent in this specific video that I want to make you glaringly aware of so that you can spot this stuff in the future when you see people get interviewed. Really quickly, I'm just going to ping on each little thing. There's awkwardness, there's avoidance, overcompensation, resistance, stress, a need for approval from the audience, and pacifying gestures to calm himself down. If you're seeing this behavior in a person in this position and with this background who would reasonably provide answers to these questions, even if the answers were nondescript or lacking in detail, most people would reasonably say yes or no, or I don't want to talk about it, I'm not comfortable talking about it. Then you're probably seeing evidence that something much more powerful is being hidden about the same subject. Unwilling to answer about surface level stuff means something is very much hidden about the deeper stuff in the same subject matter. This one behavior would have allowed you to predict the downfall of about a dozen people, and even one Hollywood producer and one famous comedian who's been in the news within the last few years. So before anyone ever even whispers about it, you'll be able to spot these things in the future just with this one little thing. Scott, what do you got?
All right. He tries to redirect and amuse everybody and get connected with the audience every time they start zeroing in again on something that he's familiar with. It's something that could get him in trouble. And even though we're not saying you can get in trouble for this, it's something around what he's done done up to that point that that's brought to his mind. And that's why he does that. So he can get away from that. He's running, in other words. He's throwing up all this stuff to get away. And he tries to isolate himself by doing that, by that laughing and making it into a show. Because it's all about him at this point, no matter what. Of course it is, because this is your life, so it would be. But he keeps drawing it back to himself. He's not being humble here at all. There's nothing... it just doesn't. Personally, it wouldn't look like somebody, even though he's a funny guy or supposedly was funny. I don't be somebody I want to hang out with because it's so creepy. And his humor is the worst. This is just like the lowest common denominator for funny stuff. And I know he's trying to appeal to everybody, but man, it's horrible. I don't think he's funny. I didn't giggle or smile or laugh once. I don't think this guy is funny at all. His illustrators get huge. His voice volume gets really loud, again, when they start digging in deeper to what's happening there. So when the interviewer does. So he's like you and Greg, you and Mark said earlier, he's hiding in plain sight. I think maybe he can't believe he's getting away with it, or thinks he's so smart he's getting away with it. Obviously he did, since he didn't get in trouble till after, didn't nobody found out till after he was dead. But like Mark said, he was blessed by the Pope, so may have that going for him. I don't know.
Which was nice.
Yeah, which is nice. Yeah, I'll leave it there. Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, so we talked, when we talked about Russell Williams hiding in plain sight, this guy had access to royalty. We'll find out later, very close access to royalty. He was a national treasure, as Mark said, so people trusted him. What I want you to pay attention to is the difference between how he answers questions that are pointed and have character assassinating intent to the ones that might be just off the cuff. So, for example, later they're going to talk to him about money, and his entire demeanor changes. There's no gaslighting. There's none of this stuff where he goes too big and goes too farcical to make it so ridiculous that it doesn't matter. But here, every time they bring up something that's character assassinating, he goes big, he goes wide. And this is, when I say people have subroutines, it's got a roach. When the light comes on, their legs automatically move. They don't have to think about it because they've done it so many times. And the longer you've hidden and the better you've hidden, the more likely you are to have those kinds of things. Watch what he does. That chewing that banana is a stall. It gives him time to think. The lifestyle is a logical response. Hey, my lifestyle is different from yours. But that feigned shock and breaking the fourth wall as he looks at the audience and draws them back in, that's his style to insulate and protect. One of the best ways to hide in plain public is just humor. If you make something ridiculous, I used to work with guys who, if you told something funny, like, Scott, you always are joking around, they'd be like, ha, 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 and you'd feel stupid just because of the way they laughed at you, and that worked. It diffused whatever they were doing. So if you deal with people like that and they know how to do this, what they're doing is another form of gaslighting by making something so large, then shrinking it, or they're just spouting out so much stuff that they are creating a smokescreen. And I think he's a combination of things. And the way you're going to be able to tell, and Chase, you're dead on about people having these styles of ways of hiding things. When we get to another serious topic later, has nothing to do with sexuality, watch the difference in the way he responds. Watch the difference in the way he responds with words, even though it's an accusation. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so there are no direct accusations here of any abuse at all. Really, what this is a questioning of his character, just as you're saying there, Greg. And so what does he do? Well, again, he denies any association by going, I can't even use that word. So he's not even going to associate himself with the word of sex, let alone the act. He then says, again, he turns it on its head. He then says, oh, I'm in trouble again. So he knows the moves of comedy. He knows that reversal is a key thing to comedy, though he himself is by no means any great comic. And I don't think anybody in Britain would have ever said, hey, Jimmy Savile, a great comic, but definitely an entertainer. And an entertainer being somebody who can just hold the audience. That's the medieval Latin, entretenere, to hold together. So all the entertainer is doing is can we hold attention? Can we get attention? And absolutely, he's one of Britain's key attention getters. And that's why the certain members of the royal family came to him for help, for branding help, essentially, is in that he was one of the first people to brand himself as an entertainer, as something unique and incredibly individual. And extraordinary and well, something that grabbed the attention of the British public during the 60s and onwards. But really, he's got this parody of the villain going on and parody of the saint going on at the same time. Saint and villain all the time. He says, feel free to use me. Feel free to use me. So again, he makes himself the victim. Again, that reversal there, which is a classic for abusers to make themselves out to be the victim. Here, he's using it to hide his abuse. And at the same time, it's a comic ideal as well to do that reversal. It's not great comedy by any stretch of the imagination, but it serves two purposes there. One last thing to note here that I quite like, which is the aggressive bite of the banana that happens there. So there is something quite predatorial that he's showing us there on the banana, and then holds it in his mouth with the bits, spread out, just like you'd expect in a in an American cartoon when the dynamite explodes. You get the same peeled back banana. So it's like he really knows the memes of or memes, whichever way you want to go. I know you want to pick me up on that one. The memes or memes of comedy, but there isn't anything really very funny about him. He can do the maneuvers, but he's not a great act as a comedian. That's all I got on that one.
It's like he's like one of those savants, because they're savant because they got hit in the head with something, and they play piano very well, but they don't say anything. They're playing. You know what I mean? They're just everything sounds in place, but they're not saying anything. You know what I mean? That's the case.
He's gotten away with this. This has been his organism since the 50s, 40s, probably, Mark. 40s, right?
Like 9 people have laughed at him.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the 50s. He was there in the early days of Cliff Richard, alongside him, early days of the Beatles, pirate radio DJ, right at the very, very beginning of popular culture, youth culture.
Wow.
One of those tape replays.
Why have you shied away from close relationships with women?
I'm quite happy to have a few close relationships tonight, if anybody's not spoken for.
But why in the past...
What are you doing after the show, ladies? A few close relationships. I'm all for it.
I'm sure the offer will be taken up, but why in the past...
Good.
Why in the past have you
I'm
avoided...
in trouble again.
Why in the past have you avoided close relationships?
Because I've never been in the same town more than about 48 hours at any one time. It's just a lifestyle I've got. It's not my fault.
But if you met somebody that you felt that you wanted to be close to, that lifestyle...
I fall in love every day of my life. Oh, every day of my life I fall in love. 2, 3, 4 times a day. I could get married immediately. Except the lights change and you have to drive off because I go in the other way, or the train pulls out of the station and you're going, I want to marry you. But on the platform. No, my passions are very near the surface. But I get well in love very quickly.
But therefore, from the way you talk, have relationships and sex been casual? Is that a casual matter for you?
You mentioned the S word.
Well, we had to get round to it eventually.
Did you?
Well...
Oh, you're talking to the wrong guy here. Oh, Mr. No Grass here.
Is it just casual?
What?
Sexual relationships.
What relationships? No. Oh, I've read about them. Yeah, I've read, not in your papers, but I've read about them in the smaller papers. And, yeah, I see what you mean now. Yeah. No, well, obviously, if a lady has been upset and she has said to me, only a relationship, like as what you mentioned, I can't use that word, if a relationship will make me less happy, I'll say, feel free to use me, I say. Feel free to use me. I will sacrifice myself to you any time of that. And then they say, thank you very much, and then they go, no, that's not my fault. It's not down to me. I don't say that, ladies.
But
Here is a perfectly honest man. Telling you.
If you like this video, get the full body language breakdown and analysis on our main channel by clicking this video right here.